Hi,
Hey Hope, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
I think they purposely assigned me to your room.
Well, good.
So I'm gonna make you guys, actually, I'm gonna just all co-hosts so then you
Perfect,
can share your screens, answer the chat, things like that. And
perfect.
then once you get started, don't worry, I'll just keep admitting people so you don't have to, because it's really
Thank
annoying.
you. It is that whole waiting room thing always comes up.
But
Ding dong.
that's my job.
Perfect. Thank
The
you so
co-host.
much. That's great. How's everything going for you?
Good, good. Here's another one of your co-hosts.
Yes.
We're crazy busy, you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you have the right model at the right time, right?
Yeah.
So everyone is scrambling to catch up
How
to
are your
their-
girls doing? Where did Lydia go?
Lydia
I know.
ended up at McAllister.
Oh, okay.
She's
Nice.
super happy, except that she misses it, and
Right, except she's not there, but that's awesome.
right, but she
I hear
loves
that name thrown around a lot. A lot of kids want to go there.
it's a really good place, and yeah,
That's excellent.
they've I feel like they've been really thoughtful both about COVID-19 and also about all the stuff that's going on in Minneapolis. They're really they have a brand new president, huge social justice mission, and I feel like they're in the right vein. Um, so okay. Well, Alan is here, which is great. Kate, welcome. We're not going to get started until 2 o'clock. So,
Hi, Alan. I'm Hope.
Hello,
From
how are
Revolution Tech.
you?
I'm in Philadelphia.
You're where again?
In Philly.
Okay, cool, cool. I am at Dickinson.
Oh, you are.
Obviously not on campus right now.
But you look like you are. That's what's important.
whereas I look like I'm in my children's childhood bedroom, which is where I am. So, great. So I'm happy to get us started once everyone's here and we're ready to go. And I think this is going to run itself, Alan, because we've got some great presenters and people will put their questions in the chat and it's all going to be good.
Awesome.
How's your gardening going? It looks like it's going pretty well.
It's going well. I got to get out there and do some more weeding today. It's about my pull some things too. They're ready.
Nice. We've been eating a lot of lettuce out of our garden and it's been really lovely.
Yeah, I gotta pull some of that. I've got some with red Russian kale, which I've never had. So I'm gonna pull some of that and see what I can do with that in the kitchen. Stacy, you tell me I lost my notes.
All right. So we are waiting on our two other presenters.
Do you want me to leave people in the waiting room?
Well, now that we've started, I don't know that we can at this point, but you know.
Yeah, anyone else I can leave in there. That's fine. I never thought to do that.
Yeah, it's what we did in our last session was we left.
Okay, it's a good idea.
We admitted just the presenters and it left everyone else in the waiting room for a while.
All right, it's a good idea. I can kick them out, but that would be rude.
Only people named Kate can come into the room early. It's the thing that we've decided.
Hey, you're gonna kill me. I didn't save my notes and shut my computer down.
Oh, that is okay. So what do you want to do? Do you need me to tell you something? Do you want to go ahead and reboot?
Well, I rebooted like a couple days ago and I was like, wait a minute. I can't.
You lost some stuff. Okay. So basically the way the structure, do you want me just to go over the structure with you one more time?
Sure.
Okay, so basically I'm going to introduce everybody. And then we're going to ask people to start putting questions in the chat from the get-go. Everyone is telling their quick story with the tangible takeaway.
Okay.
I'm going to go first on that just so that I can then monitor the chat.
Yep.
And then basically we're going to have a moderated discussion. So I'm going to pose questions to all of you. Some of them I will take from the chat. Some of them I will take from my notes, which I did a good job of writing down.
You always do a good job at those things.
Well, I'm a little off my game, I have to admit. So, but we're all fine. Hey, Josh Jitsky, I really like your purple suit.
You know what? I think I would blend into your walls.
You would.
I should come to your place, and I would just be ahead and camouflage.
It's true. We could like make my wall a green screen, and it would just be like over your whole suit.
It could.
It's awesome.
I bought the sport coat for $30 last year for a PACAC last year. I wear it once a year, so I figured I'd break it out. I hope you don't mind.
I think that's perfect. So we are going to do all kinds of from the most casual to the least casual, but it's all good.
Is that all right? Am I okay? I mean, I can dress down if you want.
No, I really think it's important that you remain exactly as you are.
Thank you. Again, I don't care for your tone. I don't think I care for your tone, Stacy.
That is usually the case.
Hi, Josh. How are you?
Good. How are you, Hope?
Do you remember me?
I do.
I'm wearing my Revolution Prep orange. If you didn't.
I do. It's good to see you. I'm going to see your colleague probably later today, Steve.
Oh yeah, where at?
So Steve lives in my neighborhood, and my wife and I just started taking tennis lessons at this local place, and he plays there when we go. So.
Got it. I don't see your fourth. There's a fourth, right?
Yeah, Krista.
Okay, so she's the only one I'll let in until 2.
So
Yeah.
Josh, almost 100% positive you got on shorts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And because I'm throwing my PACAC t-shirt after this, and I'm going to the weight room to work out because nobody's there. So I'm at school. We're allowed back in school today. So.
Oh, wow.
I got the Zoom mullet going on. Business up top, party down below.
Perfect.
Yes.
We were joking around in our last session about, Francine was telling us that she was caring for her grandson right now, who's like 2.5 years old, and that they were struggling to get him to wear pants. And I was like, Francine, it's a pantsless world right now.
It's the new normal, as they say.
No one needs pants.
Well,
all right, I'll take that.
Maybe we should rephrase.
All right, so we're doing well on attendance, and I think, Hope, I think you can just it's 1:57, so I think you can just go ahead and let everybody in. Hopefully, Krista will join us in a minute. So.
You want me to text her?
Sure. That would be great. Good morning, everybody. Or afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that we will be starting in a couple of minutes. It's only 1:57. Welcome. This is a session called Parents in the Process, Lessons Worth Sharing. I hope you're in the right place. If you're not in the right place, stay anyway. It's the best session on offer.
Stacy, did you and Josh plan to match your wall, Josh's jacket?
We did not plan it, and yet it happened. And we were thinking that Josh should actually be here blending into my walls.
Stacy and I often come, without even talking to each other, link up on things.
It's true. Oh, here's Krista. Good. Okay.
Oh, good.
Great. we will wait until 2 o'clock so that people who are timely can not feel like they're late.
Love those sounds.
Yeah. It's like you're in an arcade.
We've got a nice crowd in this group. We're on 2 pages now. It is occurring to me. I wish I had thought of background music.
Like elevator music.
There you go, Josh. You just sing for us. That'll be
Well,
perfect.
I'll do the music version of Smoke on the Water.
Nice. You could do like Purple Haze, which is like
I can.
their theme.
I can. I really shouldn't be allowed out in public. You realize that, right? I really should.
All right. Well, it is 2 o'clock. I will wait for 1 more minute just so that we can make sure everyone is in the room. But we are going to get started. And I would ask folks to feel free to turn their cameras on. This is going to be a lot of discussion. And so we're happy to see your faces. And we would love for you to pose your questions to our parents in the chat. Josh, you just turned your camera off, which is the opposite of what I said to do.
I was just getting up to get something.
Okay. So, so I think we'll get started. So if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I am going to monitor the chat, and I'll be moderating the discussion and asking your questions to our panelists. So thank you everybody for joining us today. This session is called Parents in the Process, Lessons Worth Sharing. And today we have 4 parents, including myself, on our panel who all have students, all have children who are students either in high school or college or both. And we've recently been through the process ourselves. So we have, well, I'm Stacy Kunitz, and I'm the Director of College Counseling at the Crefeld School. Josh Ditsky is Director of College and Career Counseling at Berks Catholic High School. Alan Painter is Associate Director of Admissions at Dickinson College. And Krista Evans is Director of Admission at Kutztown University of Pennsylvania. So welcome panelists, and welcome to our guests. So we're going to start with a couple of quick stories, and each of us is going to tell a story about something that happened with us as a parent in the college process. We're going to try to keep those stories fairly short so that we have lots of time for a more moderated discussion. And I'm going to go first, just so that I can keep my eye on the chat after that. So my story, my daughter is now a freshman at Macalester. She just finished her freshman year, so I guess she's technically a sophomore now. And the story that I wanted to share with you is that Macalester was not originally her first choice school. Her first choice school was a school that she applied early decision to. That did not end up working out. She's incredibly happy where she landed. I think as a mom, the place she landed is the place that I really wanted her to be from the get-go, but don't tell her that because that was like a, so, but I think that the takeaway for me, one of the takeaways for me with her early decision process was that it was really hard for her to make a decision about whether she even wanted to apply early decision. And one of the things that the school did really well for her was that they actually allowed her to come and do an overnight visit and sit in on classes before she had applied. And that I know is not possible for every school to do, but for people who are considering early decision, it really made a big difference for her to allow her to decide, yes, in fact, I do want to apply early decision to this school. So that's my little story and my tip. Alan, we'll move to you next.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Again, Alan Painter from Dickinson. I actually have 3 children who somewhat recently went through this process. My oldest is in his 4th year at Villanova. My daughter finished her 1st year at Davidson in North Carolina. And then my youngest, Jaron, who just graduated a few weeks ago, will be attending Dickinson this fall. So it certainly has been quite the journey. I've obviously been blessed to have so many friends across the country at various schools who could either serve as mentors. I recall early on, Daryl Jones interviewed my 2 children and giving them a little bit of practice. But even before that, seeing people like Krista and Josh out on the road at various programs, always speaking to them and giving them just a hello and things like that. So I think it made the process somewhat easier through the years because my kids have gone to various college fairs and just showed up with my wife or whatever while I was there. But that said, going in, we certainly thought one thing. I think they all thought they were going 10, 12 hours away from home. And, you always have your goals for your kids as well. I mean, I am a Kutztown graduate, so I was very happy that my youngest applied to Kutztown first. And I will be honest, I thought that's where we were going. I'll be very honest. And it took every other week, we went from Kutztown to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then here we are, we circle back to Dickinson, and then we'll obviously be spending time together. So that was pretty neat, just to let them have their process and not be something that I wanted. Obviously, you want them to be at great places, but they had great options.
Thanks, Alan. Josh, do you want to tell your story?
Sure. So like Alan, and like many of us on here, I am fortunate and more fortunate that we have a lot of folks we can kind of tap into and resources and my own background. But again, 26-ish years, 15 on the high school, so actually longer than that, 15 on the high school side or on the college side, 13, 14 on the high school, in my own child's mind means nothing. Even though she would go, and I've got a student, a senior who's just graduated from Berks Catholic High School. I've got a rising junior, and then I've got a rising 8th grader, 3 daughters. And so, we've had these conversations at home, and they know, what I do, and then I travel, and they've gone with me to some campuses and those things. And Bella, who's my senior, graduated, would tell stories that she's like, when I was a freshman, seniors would come to me and ask me college questions because they didn't want to ask you because they figured I knew. So I think she also assumed that she knew, maybe more than she didn't, because, she was a high school student and I'm her dad. What could I possibly know? So I also, I did a lot of listening to what other people went through, like Alan and Stacy and you. And I also was not afraid to say, go talk to, an Ellen Dietrich or, a Brittany Grayson and people that, Long story short, we started visiting schools for her for real the summer before her junior year of high school. Went to a lot of the traditional places. And at one point in her mind, she went from, this major to that major. and then out of nowhere went from, smaller mid-sized school, which my wife and I both are products of and worked at admissions, and we're like, great, to, she's like, I want big, and I want football, and I want Greek life, and I want South, and then major was somewhere down the road, to finally the point where my wife goes, stop saying it that way because you don't sound serious. I won't use the actual words that my wife used because you don't sound serious. So we did. We visited, some of the big SEC schools and all those things. And that was this time last year. That's where she's like, that's all I want to look at. So I'm looking at, bigger places down south that we can afford. And all of a sudden in October, I'm hoping she was in study hall or at lunch because the kids aren't allowed to text during class, but I get a text from her with a picture of a screenshot of the Instagram page from Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And my wife and I had said to her, like, why don't you keep talking law school, whatever, why don't you think about the business of fashion? You love fashion, you like business, those things. So we go up to FIT in Midtown Manhattan, and, we all talk about the fit and what that means for a kid. My wife couldn't go. So I took her up, my mom went up with us, and she literally, I'm watching this transformation happen, this pivot, if you will, happen. And I'm texting my wife saying, I'm watching our kid fall in love with this place. And so one of the things I learned was, you gotta be okay with that and let that pivot happen.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh. Krista.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Krista Evans, again, Director of Admissions at Kutztown. My story is about my rising senior. So he is my oldest of 3 children. So this is our first rodeo going through this process, or certainly going through it as a mom. So wish me all luck. Say some prayers for me. I'll take them. My story is about our son. We took him to an open house, and, thinking about the college process for him, again, just similar to Josh, he knows I've been in admissions my entire career. He's gone to plenty of college fairs. And I said, why don't we try an open house? I'm a Penn State grad, and Penn State Lehigh Valley is right here in, it's 15 minutes from our home. So I said, why don't we go? I know you probably don't want to go to Lehigh Valley, but let's just hear what they have to say. So he agreed, and we went, and it was wonderful. They had it organized very well. It was like an open house, as you can imagine, fun, the marching band's playing. It was a really, really great event. So we get there, they provide a great introduction from admissions. There are some faculty that come in for a panel that start to talk about academics. Now, my son at the time was a sophomore in high school, so it was a little early, and I knew that. And I just said, this will be our first one. Let's go poke around. Well, little did I know, after that presentation from the faculty, they decided to split the children, the young students, young adults, from their parents. And my son, who is about 6'1", strong athlete, think of him as this mature, again, young adult who's ready to go off to college, was absolutely terrified and was glued to my side. He wanted nothing to do with separating from me, which I was completely shocked by. And it was this immediate realization, okay, Krista, it's time for you to take a step back. Clearly this was your agenda, and it was not the agenda of your son. And we backed off. He's a very young student in his class. He has a May birthday. So while most of his friends now have turned 17, he just turned 17 about 3 weeks ago. So for me, that was my realization to back off, that again, it wasn't about me. It had to be about him. It had to be about his maturation process, about his growth into this rite of passage, so to speak. And for me to just take a step back to know when he was ready, that he needed to dictate this process more than I did. And I think I tried to be cognizant of it, and obviously wasn't cognizant of it enough. So that was my lesson learned.
Thanks, Krista. It's amazing how I feel like, for me as a professional who works with adolescents all day, every day, I can have so much perspective about everybody else's kid and like a little less about my own. So I'm going to start asking some questions friends, if you have your questions, you can throw them right into the chat. You can ask them to me privately, or you can ask them to everyone. Either way, I will see it. But the first question, I'm just going to jump right in with, and I think this is probably more for Alan and Josh. How is COVID-19 affecting, we'll start with Bella. How's COVID-19 affecting Bella's plans? Is it affecting Bella's plans? What's going to happen?
So she, yeah, we're kind of in a holding pattern because FIT and the SUNY system, as far as I know, has not made a decision yet. I've been in contact with admissions and they're like, we know they've got to, I guess, go with both the governor and the mayor of the city because they're in Manhattan, but I'll put it to you this way. When all this kind of happened, this shutdown started happening, we weren't really sure. I even said at one point, I said, there's a great school right in our backyard with your exact major. Why don't we have you start there? Even if they're open, you can live there. And then when time comes, you can transfer to New York, whatever. And she said, because I wanted to give her that away experience. And I said, we don't know what New York's going to do. She said, I would rather go online to FIT and go. And they've had, I think, an online presence for a while. She's like, I'll stay at home for a semester and go online. So she's kind of just rolling with it. I mean, the discussion last night was when's moving, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's affecting her because she has her roommates. We just don't know what move-in day is going to be or when it's going to be. But we're like, all right, if
yeah,
if it's August 24th move in, okay. If it's January, whatever move in, okay. We're just going to kind of roll.
Excellent. Alan, how about you? For all of your kids, has COVID-19 affected their plans for the upcoming semester?
I guess yes and no. It's, the verdict is still out there. I mean, with our oldest, long story short, he took a leave of absence following his roommate's death in last fall. And he is a swimmer. So he's been home working and of course ready to go back. So now that he's ready to go back, it's kind of like, okay, what next? What's with school? So we're still kind of waiting to hear what Villanova's going to do. My daughter, obviously coming off of her first year, this has been life-changing for her. So she absolutely fell in love with being in school. It broke her heart to come home, and every day she's on edge trying to figure out when they're going back and so forth, because she had planned on studying abroad this summer. So that was canceled. Our youngest, who will be going into school, he's been very mellow, quite frankly. He's ready. Our president just announced last week our plans. So now we're just waiting for the, he will play football. So he's obviously waiting to see what the conference will do in terms of, a season. So we know when the school is going to start, but when will football report? So we're kind of on edge there, but he's the mellow one right now. I don't want to necessarily say he'd be happy waiting, but he's just kind of like, whatever. Which is kind of like the process. You kind of wanted to shake him up during the process a little bit too. Like right now, I'm like, you gonna want to shake him up and get him excited about school, and he's just kind of like, whatever.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my next question, and I'll say first what's happening with my daughter, which is that McAllister hasn't decided yet or hasn't announced their decision yet, but she's convinced that she will be back in St. Paul, Minnesota, as of the end of August, whether it's in an Airbnb or in a dorm. She's like, I'm out of here, which I understand. I don't know what's really going to happen, but we'll see. Krista, I want to start with you for the next question, and it comes from the audience, which is, it says, with all of these virtual experiences, how do we get information to parents? So this is someone on the college side. I've mostly just seen students. If they were coming to campus, parents would also be hearing this information. Are parents listening in the background of virtual information sessions? So Krista, I'm going to let you start with that one.
That's a great question, and one that I absolutely can speak to. I was actually gonna jump in on the last question too, because my son is as a rising senior. Talk about perspective and talk about being able to present to a group of parents and to have empathy for what they're going through. I basically start all of my presentations now with, "I'm going through this with you. My son had his SATs canceled and rescheduled again." Parents are definitely listening, and my son Ryan and I have done a number of virtual presentations so far, and it's a great question because it's one that as a director of admissions, I also get a lot of. In fact, just this morning, I was responding to an email message from a parent about orientation. Here, the parent had gone and registered her son for orientation, and when her son didn't show up, Kutztown was under the impression that the son was not there, when in reality he was there, but it was under the parent's name. And so I think this opens up probably a little bit of a larger conversation about how involved to be. How involved should we be, right, as parents? It's absolutely something that I struggle with because I've done those presentations with my son. I told you I was the one to kind of drag him along to the open house at Penn State. So there's a fine balance, I think, of what you as a parent want to do. You want to advocate for your child. You want to push them along. My son is the kind that needs a bit of nudging. He just is. And when I think about the difference between him and my other son, they're night and day. I probably can just wash my hands of my second son at this point, and I think he'll just go. He'll be like, "I'm going to the University of Hawaii, Mom. I'm good to go," and he'll just be gone. They're just very different children. So my oldest, I feel like I need to prod him. I need to push him. And I do think that colleges need to be cognizant of the communication that they're sending to parents. We try, right, as an admissions professional, we do everything that we can to communicate to the student. It is their turn to take hold of this process, right, for them to navigate this by themselves, that they are the ones that are going to acknowledge that their parents can have access to their records, that their parents can get information. So it's a delicate balance, and I think a fine line that now as a parent and as a director of admissions, I have to weigh. So we think and we talk a lot about parent communications on the admission side because parents are listening and parents want to be engaged, and particularly, my gosh, in this time of a pandemic, our parents are concerned, right? Our parents are worried. I'm worried. I'm worried about next year and what it's going to bring. I'm worried about this coming school year, even academic year for senior year, and what it's going to entail. So there's a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of things that we kind of need to peel back, so to speak, and just work through families. And what we've tried to do on the admissions side, at least, is to just say, we don't know all the answers, but we're going to do everything that we can to communicate to you what we know when we know it. And that, as of right now, has been helpful at Kutztown, and I think has been at least satisfying to our parents for now. But as soon as we have more information, we try to share it.
Ditsky, jump in.
Yeah, if I just piggybacking on that, I was kind of laughing that I think that I agree with Krista that the lines of communication also have to be very open and clear with the parents. And I'll give you one example. So for weeks and weeks and weeks, Bella has been saying, we don't know when the school is opening because New York hasn't opened yet. We don't know. She's like, no, move-in day is August 24th. And she's also very young. She will only turn 18 her second day of class of freshman year of college. So she's young, but she kept saying, finally she got frustrated. She's like, just let me do this on my own. And we weren't getting communication. She goes, I keep getting weekly emails from housing with my housing checklist. And I finally said, that's because we paid the housing deposit. That's an automated response. No, it's not. I'm like, okay. I said, bring it down. She brings it to me. And I said, I took a deep breath because sometimes I don't have the patience with my own child that I do with all the other children I work with. And I said, hon, you know how we're always telling you guys this is automated, whatever. I go, this is automated. I said, it's the same message over and over again. She goes, I know I'm moving in. I said, you're not moving in. I said, she goes, I already reached out to housing and they haven't got back to me. I said, I know you don't want dad to get involved, but I'm just going to reach out to the admissions dean that I happen to know, gets back to me and says, she was also waitlisted on housing, gets back to me and says, she's being moved off the wait list, and we're not open yet. We don't know. So I didn't say a word. So 2 days later, she comes down, she goes, thanks for helping me get off the housing wait list, and we're not open yet. I'm like, okay. But I think that the lines of communication with colleges to parents, again, I get they're 18, I get all of it. Again, I work on that side. But we need to also be looped in, because I feel like the high school graduate wants to go off and be the adult. I'm like, you're not there yet. You really aren't there yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think that there's it's like a scaffold, right? It's like or a ladder. It's like, here was what their responsibilities in high school look like, and here's what their responsibilities in college look like. And there needs to be some kind of ladder to kind of help the parents actually pull back while the kids are ramping up. But yeah, and there's a similar question. So a follow-up question, and I'll let Alan start with this one, is, did you, and maybe not the Dickinson kid for this one, but did you as parents receive a lot of direct communication from the schools your students were looking into? If yes, was it helpful? If not, was that a struggle or difficult for you going through the process? So I feel like we started to touch on that a little bit, but Alan, if there's anything that you would like to add there.
I'll be honest. I mean, we had, obviously, as an admissions officer, you always want to see what other schools are doing and pull a few things. But I think for both my older two, obviously there have been some great mail coming in. Most of them go to my wife. We always put her email on them, because I don't, I'm like, listen, I've got too much going on. You read them all, and it's been great. I've been very impressed with just about every school that my kids visited, applied to. I think right now the downside is, are some of the schools that my son, my youngest, did not let them know where he's going, because we're still getting some of those messages. But it's good information too, because I also got to see what schools were made the decisions to go back earlier, and so forth. So I think the communication's been great. I will say this, I'm a huge fan of the Facebook pages that the parents have on some of these schools, because there's a lot of talk on there, because there are some questions, even as an admissions officer, that I don't even think about asking, that I've heard that I've seen other parents ask. I'm like, wow, I never really thought about that. So there's lots of discussion. There's also, I love seeing colleges who have parents who are current parents who are offering help as well. But I'll put a quick plug in for Davidson. When the students were sent home, the community, the alumni, the parents were so much help to families, in terms of there were some families that even offered to help others travel home, store their things locally. There was just so much there. So kudos to all the schools that we've seen.
Great, thank you. And we had a follow-up question, which is, what's the best form of direct communication with parents? Email, mail, calls, and Alan, you mentioned social media. Krista, would you want to jump in there, and then or Josh, did you have something that you wanted to piggyback?
I do, but let Krista go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would definitely agree with social media. In fact, I have found helpful things in the Kutztown parent Facebook group, just by way of being there and watching the kinds of questions that are offered. It's informed me now as an admissions director where maybe our holes are, or where our holes are with connecting other offices. I talk a lot with my staff about connecting the dots, right? Making sure that we're connecting to housing. Housing is connected to new student orientation. New student orientation is connected to the registrar, et cetera. So that for me has been really, really helpful. And I think I haven't, for my son at least, I haven't gotten any direct parent communication yet, but I just think what we try to do is, yes, send things out definitely through social media. I think that that's one way that we can connect, and emails just still seem to be the best way to connect with parents. We aren't really doing any phone calls home. If we are, we're doing them to the students. We are texting students as well. But as of right now, the parent info is only an optional question on the application. We're actually thinking of making it mandatory next year, just so that we can add it to all of our communication plans and have a definite way to communicate. Right now, it's just intermittent, right? We have some parent contact info, we have others that we don't have, but I've definitely found that social media is helpful.
And Josh?
I will just say, I agree with Al. We've seen a lot of great communication from all the schools that Belle got into, and we're thrilled with where she's going to go. And admissions at the institution has been really responsive and great. I will, though, if I can, give shout outs to two particular schools that she ended up choosing not to go to, but were great. Marist in Poughkeepsie, New York, and McDaniel, their communication sequence in Maryland were simply phenomenal. And it was communications to both her and to us as parents, and similar information, but different audiences. And, you know, I mean, just really, really good. And it wasn't a lot. I will tell you, email is great. For me, not so much a phone call, social media, email, but even letters and timely, or cards, like informational postcards, just a quick bullet points, what we need to know or whatever. They were exceptional, those two places.
Great, thank you. And so we have another question in the chat, and I definitely want to jump in on that one, which is, so it says, I wanted to ask about preparing your own students for college studies. I teach undergraduates and taught online through the pandemic. It was a tough transition requiring a lot of flexibility. This semester will require much more of that from faculty and students. How are you talking to your students about this and preparing them? And I'm just going to say, I would like to start on that one by saying that my daughter had a very easy transition to the online learning. She had one teacher who was like not getting on board quickly, but she was able to email the advisor and her advisor, and she sorted through some of that, which was great. She, you know, didn't like it as much as she liked the in-person interaction, but she was fine. As a person who works in a high school, what I can tell you is that some of my students like thrived during this time with online instruction and are now like, I wish instruction could be online all the time. It seems to be my platform. And I have other students who really circled the drain and just could not engage with the online studies. And with those students, those are the kids we're talking about gap year with, you know, and saying, if it's going to be online, you shouldn't go right away because it's not a good platform for you. You're not learning well during that. It's not working for you. And why are you going to spend an eighth or a fourth of your college career online if this is really a bad platform for you? So I think it's really important that, you know, it's always really important, self-reflective, you know, introspection I think is always really important, but this is a particularly important time because, you know, what you're embarking on is so unusual. Would anyone else like to jump in on that question about preparing your own kids for these new platforms and flexibility?
I'll be perfectly honest. And not to be stereotypical on, you know, boys and girls, but I think my daughter's been very ready, and my boys, like me, are going to be, or like I am genuinely worried about the transition. My daughter really fell in love with the small classroom and being able to interact with the faculty. So it was a rough transition at first, but she's so focused and so, you know, we kind of talk to her about that, and I think she'll be fine. You know, with my oldest being off and then returning to school, I'm a tad worried about that. But he did take 2 summer online courses a year ago, so it's not like he hadn't done that. before, but I know he's really anxious to get back to school, and we'll see. But I think for my youngest, knowing him, I am worried. I'm a little less worried because he'll be going closer to home, obviously where I work. I would say that if he were going further away, I would probably really consider the gap year or a transfer option. Because I am worried about that, because that's something that he has never experienced. He hasn't experienced college life. This will be different. So that, we're kind of in that mode now, trying to think about how that's going to work for him.
Alan, I would like to follow up with you and have you answer the next one too, which is that, do you have any advice for secondary school counselors? Is there anything that became clear to you through your processes where you were like, oh, this is the thing that secondary school counselors are doing that I really want them to continue, or I really wish there was more of that, or something else?
Oh my. There's nothing that really stood out that I'm like, oh, this is what they should be doing. I obviously, everyone struggles, with especially, my kids went to public school. So obviously there's larger, student faculty ratio as well as counselor ratio. So whereas I'm used to working with counselors like yourself and Sarah and so forth, who know these kids, there's that chip on my shoulder where I'm like, well, I kind of want someone to know my kid too. and it became very obvious that sometimes there wasn't much that they knew about them, except for my oldest. My oldest happened just to have a really strong athletic career, so he, everyone knew him. But I'll tell a quick story. I remember his counselor reaching out to us because she was really trying to help out in the process, but there's a teacher at the school that has the same last name, spelled differently, but has the same last name, and everything she sent or she meant to send to us, she sent to him. So it was totally missing them all.
Know your kids, more names.
Yeah, so it's like know your student, lady. But I think it was the effort that she put in that we really appreciated, and that he was, that teacher was like, okay, that's not me. Make sure you send that to Alan Painter, not this painter. But there's nothing really that stood out, but I think it was like note to self, just because I happen to be in this field. We're not getting any special treatment from the guidance counselors either, or the school counselors, or the college counselor, whatever name they're using.
I will tell you, I brought cookies to our college counselor a lot, so maybe I did get special treatment. Krista, do you have any advice, on either side? We'll do Krista and Josh, advice either for the secondary school counselors or advice for other admissions counselors?
Well, I just want to reference really quickly, Mike Dunn, thanks for commenting about this option of recommending community colleges for online options. My son and I now have talked about that too. He did not enjoy the online environment as a high school junior, and was just kind of getting things done, right? Just kind of checking it off. There wasn't a whole lot of engagement. And a lot of that was because the coursework, the way our school district decided to run the online environment was an asynchronous style. And so there was no getting up even at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the morning for that matter. He usually would, stroll out of bed at, I don't know, 11:30, 12 o'clock maybe, from being up late, would get his work done, and he got his work done, but he just didn't have to be online at a certain time. So we've talked about him taking an online course as well. So I really like that suggestion to help students transition into this environment. At Kutztown, we are planning, this was mentioned before, planning to have move-in on August 24th, but who knows? There's been lots of colleges now that have come out with kind of a hybrid model, right? That some courses will be in person, some courses will be online. And so I think that I think it's important that we all prepare our students, high schoolers, any high schoolers that you might work with, that this is not necessarily just going to go away, right? We're not just going to snap our fingers and go back to the way that we knew it, that I think that this reality is going to stay with us for a while. And we heard Noe Ortega, if you were on the call this morning, just in his brief welcome, he mentioned, yes, we're going green and we're excited that we're going green on Friday, but we could really quickly go back to yellow. And then what happens? What happens if our students move in on the 24th of August and then we go to yellow or we go to red? It's just very challenging, obviously. In terms of the school counselors, no, they also have been supportive. My children also go to public school, and they manage their course schedules and they're helping with the college process. I think because they know that my son, well, because of my experience, I'm very involved in our local high school. I do many of their keynote talks regarding the college process, and they invite me to different events. So they certainly know my role and know that I'm helping in terms of the college process, but they have been wonderful. I think what I have loved since COVID is the variety of platforms. And I think that that's something on the college side that we have tried to do too. There's been a definite appreciation for our schedules changing. We thought that our schedules were fluid before and we could kind of work anytime, right, from our phones. That's exacerbated in this COVID-19 era, right? Panels that you're doing at 5 o'clock. It's like, wait a second, isn't that dinner time? Well, yeah, whatever. We're going to do a college panel at 5 o'clock. Let's do it. College panel at 7 o'clock. That's how it was in the past. But just this kind of fluid scheduling. And again, students, maybe they want to sleep in a little bit later and they go a little bit later, but our school has done a really nice job of offering some sessions for parents, specifically offering some online workshops, and again, in different platforms with different technologies. So that's definitely been helpful.
Great. And Josh?
I would say, jumping back to the online piece, my 3 girls, we went pretty quickly to online, and we went with synchronous learning online. And so, I mean, some teachers were more like, all right, we're going to meet and then 3 days a week, and then you can check in other times, whatever. But we really talked to our girls about the importance of being on a schedule and staying on a schedule. With Bella, it was a little bit of, we were getting into a little bit of senioritis-y kind of stuff. So it was like, get up, get go. And she did. She was pretty good, but there were times where we had to kind of keep on her. My middle daughter, Gigi, is very regimented and disciplined. And so she was up and whatever. My youngest one, in 7th grade, I think had more work than the other 2. And she's like, we got to meet at 8:15 with our teachers. And it was just really boom, boom, boom. I will tell you though that with Bella, am I concerned if she goes and then or if it's online? Yes. I also think she's going into a program that she really loves. And she actually, at one point I had to tell her, I thought it was great that she was taking this online fashion class through some fashion school in France. She just found that she was taking a class. I'm like, you still have to finish high school. She's like, so I think she's going to be in a spot where she's more focused on what she wants. I think switching gears, I think from the high school side and to the college side, I think that, if we can continue to be in conversation and continue college folks to reach out to the high school folks and say, what can we do for you? How can we do that? How can we, work together to do this? We started, I think the second week, or the first full week of the closure, we started with virtual meetings with our students, finishing up with seniors and doing the sophomore or doing the juniors. And then in week 2, we started doing programming, virtual programming. We ran a full, pretty much the tagline was business as usual, different delivery system. That's it. And we hosted 42 college rep visits in the spring, which is more than I've ever hosted in the spring, and 6 or 7 workshops. And I started reaching out to the other high schools in the Diocese of Allentown, to which we belong, and other local schools. So I think if we can also continue to work together as counselors with each other, neighboring districts, and I know there's territorial stuff, whatever, but I think if we can continue to reach out and connect with each other, if we have to remain virtual, especially, the better. I mean, we got a full summer slated of stuff we're doing, and the invitation is out for other folks at other high schools to have their kids join. So I think we need to do that. I really think we need to do that.
Great, thank you. And there's a little bit of stuff going on in the chat. A few things I wanted to sort of point out. So one thing is that there's been a little bit of conversation about the difference between what this fall will look like versus what the spring looked like, right? That in the spring, everyone was kind of transitioning and freaking out and trying to get all this stuff going at the same time. Over the summer, there are lots of people, both I think on the high school side and the college side, who are doing tons of training and professional development to try to make the fall virtual experience better, more robust. And I think that that is happening. And so I think it is important to reassure our kids that just because it went one way in the spring doesn't necessarily mean it will be the same in the fall. And then Molly pointed out too that their online high school experience could be very different from an online college experience. And Molly from Juniata also let us know that they offered a free 1-credit course for incoming students to take so that they could see for themselves what an online education would look like, which I think is a really great option. I will also just say, in terms of like my advice to everybody, is just, I think for me, going through this as a parent made me realize, like, I just started looking at things a little bit differently. I think in the past, I was always like, okay, so you'll take your kids to go visit some colleges. And I mean, I knew it was logistically hard, but I just didn't really think about it in that way. And then when I was trying to actually figure out like how I was going to get my kid to these college visits, and they didn't have Saturdays, and I was like, what's happening? Like it really, I think I ran into it from the parent perspective in a way that made me realize that, I think we as a profession don't always, there's a lot of talk about difficult parents, and we're not always as empathetic with parents as we are with our students. And I think there's room for us to have a little bit more empathy for parents, because it's a lot, and it was a lot to juggle. And I think that we are sort of halfway in the dark. The colleges are communicating more with their kids than they are with us, and our kids aren't always the greatest translators and all of that. So I just think that, more empathy all the way around is probably good. That is 2:45. I am willing, if anyone has any last thoughts that they feel like they need to share, we can do that. Otherwise, hearing none, I will just say thank you so much to Krista, Alan, and Josh. You guys were awesome. It was really a pleasure. What a dream team. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Presenters, if you would like to stay back for a moment. This is the part where we get to see who walked away from their computer because they're still hanging out of the chat.
Stacey, I'm gonna see if I can just make you the host so that I can jump off if you guys want to.
Sure. And then I'm going to remove Melissa.
Take host. Okay. So.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I just really wanted to say thank you so much. That was really great. I really appreciate the time that you put in and the effort, and I think you did beautifully, and I think people got a lot out of it. So
Thank you for asking for doing this. Thanks for putting it together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It was fun, and it was really, I wish we could have been together. That would have been nice.
And my thoughts and prayers are with you, my friend. I saw your post.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
my nephew overdosed, and it's like he's 28 years old, and we didn't know he was using, and
Oh my God.
his father just died like 2 months ago,
Oh, God.
and of pancreatic cancer after like a long drawn out.
Oh, God.
So his his father died March 31st, then his stepfather died of liver cancer a month later. And there's 3 other siblings, and it's just like, it's been, I just can't even, I don't even know where to go with it. It's impossible to process. It's so awful.
I'm sorry.
And such lovely, lovely people, all of them, and really. So thank you. I appreciate the thoughts, but it's been great to just be to be part of PACAC and kind of put it aside for a few minutes and do this. So I'm glad that I think it went really well. I think people liked it. So
I think so too. We had almost 50 people on. I can't believe it. It's amazing. I mean, the virtual environment obviously is not as ideal as, hugging and seeing you in person, but I think that this online platform really is great for some people. And I think it's convenient and they can hop on and hear what they need to hear.
And no pants.
And no pants. Wet pants. The wet pants, my friends. Yes.
Love that. I'm just all yoga pants all the time.
I just pulled something doing that. I think I just hurt myself.
Well, also I'm just realizing I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, they're still recording this session. So hopefully before they put it on the website, they'll take off all the parts about my nephew and whatever. So
This wouldn't be the first time I did something stupid on video.
It wouldn't be the first time either.
That's why I didn't show my pants.
How grateful am I that none of this existed when I was a child, when I was growing up, because there would be a lot of really bad stuff.
We're lucky.
No joke. I have to say this. I saw somebody
has to come back again a year from now, because obviously post COVID, like everything is so geared towards online learning and what's going to happen. So even with talking about taking your kids and visiting schools and applying to schools, it's going to be a totally different discussion a year from now.
Totally different ballgame. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Where
here's a real quick. I know we're trying to go. Here was a reality check for me. Watching people jump in. One of my former high school's BC students came on as a college admissions officer, and I was in the business meeting with another one from the year after. Chris Warren is at Albright, and he was a great kid, standout 3-sport athlete here, whatever. All of a sudden, you see him log in. I'm like, oh.
We're old.
And and then Gavin Rero is at Albright as well, and I'm like, oh, she's in the business meeting with me. I'm like, it just seems like yesterday you were sitting in my office working on applications. I'm like, oh no.
Cool. That's super cool.
It's neat.
Really
They're 2 neat kids. They're very neat.
I'm 53, which is not the oldest person in the world, but I am now at the point where I have taught several children of my former students, which is
wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, they were both young mothers.
I'm right behind you. I'm
taught the
right
kid and then taught wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. All right, friends.
All right, guys. Great to see you all.
Good seeing you all.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you guys.